Well, good evening. My name is Dennis Steadman. This is the June 5th meeting of the Patterson Farm Master Plan Implementation Committee. And we have 5 of 6 committee members present. And those are, from my left,
Good Child, Secretary.
Peter Solor, Vice President.
Good evening, Ron Schmid.
And Joe Camaratta.
Very good. Thank you all for being here tonight. We have an agenda that's been published and some activities underway, which we'll learn a lot more about. Why don't we get right into the agenda? The first item is to review and approval of the May 8 meeting minutes. Fred?
Thank you, Dennis. The meeting minutes of the May 8th meeting were distributed to the committee. I haven't received any other comments. Are there any other comments at this point?
No.
No.
None here.
Okay. Motion to accept the minutes.
I make a
Motion to accept the minutes, yes.
I second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the minutes are approved. Thank you, Fred. And thank you for doing the minutes, particularly that month. It was a bit of a challenge. So we have our subcommittee updates. First is the Building Protection and Enhancement Subcommittee. And for that update, I'll turn it over to Peter and Fred, who are members of that committee. First sub item is the Carpentry and Painting Lead Paint Remediation Project, which is underway presently.
Correct. They have 4 buildings mostly completed, and they've started a 5th, all at the Janney homestead portion of the project, portion of the site. Just as a reminder, the primary focus of this project is the lead paint remediation and painting. The carpentry is ancillary to that. And we were sent an email saying that the contractor had exhausted their carpentry allowance after only 4 buildings.
Do you have a sense of what portion of the total carpentry work that those 4 buildings might account for? Is it half, less than half?
Most obviously they're mostly just focusing, and what I could see was mostly siding repairs that they had done. As mentioned during the proposal review phase, their carpentry allowance was very small relative to the volume of work that could occur out there. So it's not surprising that they ran out of their carpentry allowance. And I believe the buildings they completed are ones that are the highest focused: Caretaker's Cottage, Janney House, a couple of the garages there.
Do you know if
I wouldn't recommend that the township expend more money on carpentry with them anyways. I'm just as a recommendation, simply because there's so much, which, like I said, again, we've talked about in previous meetings.
And you will cover that in your report to the township, and I guess at that point we'll ask the township if they intend to up the project allowance to allow more carpentry work to go on, or if it's going to be capitated at the pre-approved amount.
Yeah, that would be a question. I mean, I guess we could talk about what our recommendation would be on it, but I think that we need a proposal from the contractor to have a discussion on it.
Okay.
That the painting itself is doing what it's supposed to do. It's being applied heavily. They're removing all the loose lead paint. They're applying it heavily. They have warning tape up to keep the public away from the buildings. And like I said, there'll be a site visit report that I'm going to generate and hand over to the township with some more specific details regarding the work.
Okay. Gotcha. Peter, when do you think you can get that report to the township?
My goal is to get that to them by the end of the weekend.
Okay.
I just need to go back out there, take some pictures. I'm going to treat it like architect site visit report, even though I'm not the architect.
Very good. I appreciate your thoroughness, but if you have to be slightly less thorough to get it done and accommodate your own other scheduled activities, we certainly understand.
Dennis, just a comment on that. There were some questions from the public on social media, because I presume Bet or someone from AOY had posted a picture about the painting, and there was a question about which buildings were being done, or if they were all being done. So just to clarify, anybody that's maybe seeing this, all but the Satterthwaite farmhouse, and I believe one of the garages or outbuildings on the Janney Patterson side are not included, but all the others are expected to be painted.
It's one of the outbuildings on the Satterthwaite side.
Oh, on Saturday.
Yeah, it's the equipment building, which has
The only building on Satterthwaite I thought that was included in the painting is the main barn.
the main barn and I think the garage.
The pump house?
Pump house, yeah.
Okay. So there's two, I thought it was 10 buildings out of the 14.
Mhm.
So
And one isn't around anymore.
well, no, that was 15 structures. I've already discounted that.
Dennis,
I wasn't aware of the social media questions. Ron?
yeah, no, I just wanted to comment. I don't want to overreact to the social media comments because there was only a few. But what I learned from those few comments is I think it's incumbent upon us to be very specific over this next couple months as to where exactly we are on painting and fixing up these buildings. Because, you know, one person, for example, was asking, you know, who owns these buildings? You know, that's a very basic question. You know, we've been talking a lot about creating a not-for-profit to manage the properties, and yet it seems to me that some of the constituents are still asking questions like who owns it and how many buildings are going to be fixed up and when are they going to be fixed up. So it's a long way around to say maybe if we could just get a one-page fact sheet and we can decide how to execute that, where to put it, it might help people understand where we're at.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And again, just to reiterate, this project that's going on right now really wasn't meant for building repair. It was meant to remediate the lead paint and obviously as part of the remediation to put new paint on. Any carpentry repairs were secondary to that. And they are not tackling any of the windows or structural at all. To the extent that they are, it's mostly the exterior siding.
Yeah, and we'll have to be clear. I'll go on social media and try to track some of that down, but I wouldn't say we're fixing up any buildings. We're like you just said, we're painting and we're doing the lead remediation, and we're doing the minimum carpentry work that's necessary to facilitate that painting and lead remediation. No structural work is being done, no interior work is being done. So it's the bare minimum. There's after these buildings are painting, they still need repair. They're not repaired, right? So yeah, we'll want to be clear about that. Ron, let's you and I talk offline on
Okay, sure.
a clear tactic on responding to social media. I've done some, but I'm not on it often enough to always be current. So we'll discuss that. Other things on this first topic? Peter, Fred, anyone?
Well, they have, as noted in the minutes, they have a scope for the asbestos, which was derived actually from the two engineering reports. So it's pretty straightforward. There's no feedback from the township on where they're at with that. And I haven't seen any emails on where they're at negotiating getting that phase two environmental assessment completed. They're
Okay.
probably still trying to work with that agency, but I haven't heard any progress on it.
Okay. With respect to the asbestos remediation, you've not heard a response. Uh, is it time to send a tickler email?
Yeah, it would be on that, yes.
Okay, okay,
It's pretty straightforward and it's not that big. I think the phase two environmental is a little bit
right. Bigger.
bigger because they're planning on taking care of the drums and things like that with that. So
Okay. Okay.
actually should say phase two plus because they're planning on doing some of the remediation that will be associated with the
Right.
environmental study, which is more than what a typical phase two would include.
Okay. It's a phase 2 plus. Okay. And it's an environmental assessment study or an environmental safety assessment?
It's an environmental assessment. I don't know
Okay,
where that safety came from.
no, that's my insert. I thought that was the title of the study. My mistake. Okay. Uh, any other discussion from this subcommittee? Actually, I have a related question to this subcommittee, which is the proposal to take down the collapsed corn crib on the Satterswaith farmstead. Do you know any update? Does anyone have an update on that? I know the township had a proposal. Then their reaction was it was a little higher than they expected and they were going back. But I haven't heard anything since, and that was maybe a month ago. So I'll follow up on that.
I guess as part of the abatement scope, I'll ask about the phase two. And it's environmental site assessment. The S stands for site.
Oh, site. I thought there was another S in there. Okay. Site.
But I might also do it in combination with the asbestos. They're related.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anything else then? If not, we'll move on to nonprofit and funding. Ron, Joe, and I are that subcommittee. The lease agreement was, we were promised to have a draft of that by Memorial Day. I failed to ask what year. That was my bad. No, I got word from the township that that the attorney is working on it and that it would be available in a matter of weeks. So I've asked for a more firm deadline than that, but that's what we're operating with right now. And as soon as we see a draft of that lease and we can begin to refine that, the lease that would be of the buildings and the yards or the property immediately surrounding them, from the township leasing to a new a to be formed nonprofit, the Janney Foundation. Once that lease is in its final stages, then the Janney Foundation nonprofit can be created and must be created in order to enter into that lease. So there's been nothing done about the creating of that foundation, as the lease agreement is a gating item. Any other information, comments, or anything on that? I do understand that there was a meeting with the supervisors recently where it was discussed and reminded that creating turning the property over via a lease to a dedicated nonprofit for that property was at the core of the master plan recommendations that the Board of Supervisors approved unanimously in December of '23. So there's, as I understand it, there's no debate on what to do. It's just taking time to do it. Okay. Community Communications
Sure.
Subcommittee, which is Ron, thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple of things, but I'll be very brief. Back in May, I should start there. We submitted a article to Lower Makefield Township, which was published in May. We talked about the building restoration and painting, and that during the spring something would happen. When I get to the most recent submission, I'll update that. And we've already talked about some of that. Number two was the historic recognition and naming. And at that time, on May 2nd, we announced that the official submission to the National Register would be to name it the Thomas Janney Homestead Historical Agricultural District, honoring Mr. Janney, who received the original land grant from William Penn and established the first building. And then third, which was an articulation of our objectives for 2025, was the creation of the Janney Farmstead Foundation, which you already talked about, Dennis. In the most recent submission, and this is kind of chronicling, I think, our developments, that's why I'm doing it this way. In our most recent submission that we gave, which will be published in August, we noted that there was a start of the carpentry repairs and exterior painting this spring, and it's now underway. Although in the beginning of this conversation, not the entire community understands that, and we kind of need to address that. Two is the preparation of a National Register of Historic Places nomination for the full 231-acre site. And I don't want to take Joe's thunder here, but I know he's hoping to have this submitted by the end of the year. And third was the progress towards a long-term lease. And so far, we have not achieved that objective in 2025. I think you've underscored that already, and I think it needs to be a primary objective of the committee going forward. The other thing I was asked to report on, which was a really interesting day that both Dennis and I had here at Lower Makefield Township. It was Saturday, May 10th. The Historical Commission hosted an open house to connect with residents, offering access to historic resources and expertise, and welcoming community input. We were asked to have a booth. It was great. We had a booth there. I'll show you a couple of the props we used because I'd like to. And number one was this prop, which basically talked about our objectives for this year, which is to get the first paint on. Two was the lease agreement, and three is National Register. And number two, and Joe, I'm going to pass this one on to you. We had this done by a neighbor here. This property has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places. So when it happens, the plaque is ready, Joe.
There you go. Good. That's incentive, Ron.
Three is, first paint. So we had this also to show to constituents. And finally, the fact that one of our objectives for this year was indeed creating the lease agreement for the master lease agreement, which has not occurred. Really good discussion, and some people there have been around this issue for years and years and were very knowledgeable. And yet there were others, and I just want to single out one. There was this one young lady who came in later in the day. I won't give you a name, but she was with Troop 30G in Morrisville, and she had discovered this project that we're working on Facebook or on Lower Makefield Township website. and she wants to do a story about it, and she wants to get her troupe involved in working on this as volunteers with Bet and with others to help create a really historic property. So all in all, I thought it was an excellent day, and Dennis, you may want to comment as well, but it was a really good day. It was good that we were there.
No, I agree. It was, I know you, there was a count of how many people that came through, but it was,
It was about 25 that we spoke to, yeah.
we spoke to about 25 people, and they ranged from people who were very knowledgeable and informed to people who just wanted to know what was going on. So I thought it was worthwhile. I really want to express my thanks to the Lower Makefield Historic Commission for inviting this committee into that open house. That was they were hosting an open house here in this room and had a lot of local historic artifacts and experts and here to answer people's questions. So it was very complimentary. So Joe, pass along to your fellows, your comrades on the Historic Commission, our appreciation.
Will do,
The
Dennis.
only other thing I'd add here, Dennis, is just one other item, which is that we did submit for publication in August another story. The headline of that is "The Patterson Farm: A Historic Legacy Takes Root." And we finished the story by saying these steps mark the beginning of a lasting partnership between Lower Makefield Township and the community-led Patterson Farm Implementation Committee, Janney Farmstead Foundation, to realize a shared vision to preserve Patterson Farm as legacy of history, beauty, inspiration, and community benefit.
Very good.
Thanks.
Appreciate all your efforts, Ron. I know it's a never-ending task. Any other questions or issues on community communications? All right, the next agenda item is update on the National Registry submission. Joe?
Okay, last time we met, I had mentioned that we had gathered some data from the agricultural censuses and looked at the output of the two farms versus those of the Lower Makefield Township averages, which compared very favorably. So what we've been working on now is pretty much the writing of the submission itself, especially this part around the statement of significance, which is really important. And in order to do that, it requires us to have a certain historical context around what agriculture in Lower Makefield was like during, the four periods. The periods, starting in the 18th century going through to the 20th century. So for three of the four periods, or for two of the four periods, I should say, we're really, really good, really strong. The challenge is actually in the first period and the last period. And the first period is we're still trying to sort through the whole Janney sold the property to Brown, who sold it back to a descendant of Janney, and all of that, and try to figure out what buildings were there in the 18th century. That's probably the biggest challenge we have right now. And I've been looking at many conflicting resources on this and going back to primary documents, deeds and wills. So I'm going to continue to work on that. But the other area is actually in the 20th century. So what happened after essentially when the Pattersons got involved and bought the farm. And there, Dennis has offered to help out. We have a meeting with Sam Stewart set up for next week, where we're going to look at aerial photography that starts probably like 1938, and there's a couple in the 1950s and then 1970, to begin to look at, what was the output, what was produced on the farm during that time. And we won't be able to measure the output. I don't know of any other agricultural census that go that late that would tell us about output. And I don't know that we have any records from the Pattersons that talk about that. But anyway, we're going to at least be able to do that and be able to show how the landscape evolved over time. So they're the two biggest pieces for me to work through in the next month.
Yeah, that's great. I looked over your questionnaire. I think there is some additional I'm sure there's additional information we can bring to bear to answer some of those agricultural production questions.
Yeah.
That are, I don't think will be too mysterious. And to the extent that Sam Stewart can fill in some other details that I know we can make progress. We'll have to work through it and see how much, but I know we can add information for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I need to do a little bit more work on that, Dennis, because as I went back and was rewriting, as we looked at the earliest 20th century, the Doan Farm, which is the Satterthwaite Farm, was really a leader in poultry production. But yet there's no chicken house. So I need to talk to Stan and say, well, where were the chickens? Either the chicken house was there, it's no longer there, or they were in a barn or something. I don't really know. So I have some questions like that based on the agricultural production and the buildings. That's what we're trying to do with Sam, is trying to relate how are these buildings used over that time. And that could also help us to date the buildings a little bit better too.
Okay. Excellent. Any questions for Joe? No.
Question though, Dennis, can you refresh my memory? I know at one. If you refresh my memory, I know at one point we reached out to both Congressman Fitzpatrick as well as some of our local legislators, and there was talk of potential grant opportunities. I don't recall the follow-up on that and where we were with that.
Well, I know there's been 2 grants submitted by the township that were submitted and now we're awaiting answers.
Okay.
We were going to get the answer to, and I don't have the details in front of me, but we'll get the answer to one, I thought by the fall, and the other by the end of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
I could look up the details of those. One was a matching grant up to 200,000, and the other was bit smaller than that. But looking at the submissions, we felt that the submissions fit the charter of the grant well, and that our prospects would be favorable. But you don't know until you get the answer, right? Peter?
I don't know if it was related here, but one of those grants is in a program that the township had also gotten another grant that they hadn't used, but which they now have, which they figured was going to strengthen the case for us getting a grant.
Okay.
It was related, I believe, to the leaf collection system.
Okay, all right. Well, the good news is we haven't had any more mulch fires, so that will chalk that up as a success. Well, thank you all. Any other business, I
have
other issues?
one more under the Building Protection Enhancement Committee. Forgot to bring this up. I will follow up with Jim Majewski about where they went with reestablishing the corners near Yardley Langhorne Road and how their reach out to the state on getting an opening permit on that side was going.
For the driveway?
The drive.
Agricultural drive, okay. Oh, yes, you're right. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, at this point, is there any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Review of next steps, assignments, and future schedules. Fred?
I have noted that, let's see, Peter is going to send a report to the township on the painting, his site review, and also question about whether they're going to add any additional repair costs for the remainder of buildings.
Right.
Peter and or Dennis are going to check with the township on the asbestos and environmental analysis status.
You said that would be part of your follow-up?
I'll do that one, and you were taking the other topic.
The corn crib.
Corn crib, I'll take the corn crib and, and, in the status of the lease, just, or what were you referring to?
Status on the bids for the corn crib or what.
Oh, the bid on the corn crib, right, right. Okay,
And then, as you just mentioned, Peter was going to follow up with Jim Majewski on the driveway access.
okay.
July 10th would be our next meeting.
If I could ask the committee members that are present, does it, as of this point, will you be available on the 10th?
Yes.
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 I will be. Okay, all right. Very good. And we do not have a date in August, is that right, Fred? Katie hasn't gone out that far yet?
No, I don't recall seeing that, but
Yeah, okay, okay. Very good. Well, committee, I appreciate all your efforts. We always said this would be a long, slow process. We're at the stage where it's 100% township dependent. We're pushing hard to get it to a stage where it'll become less municipal government dependent and driven more by nonprofits. Not that that is always going to be easy and quick, but it'll be a little closer control, a little tighter control. So let's just we'll just keep pushing at that because the property is too beautiful, valuable, and historic to not do that. So we'll keep it going. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Take care.
Let me stop this recording.